interesting things that I saw, and those were the sketchbooks that you kind of maintain. What is the sort of process that you whenever you're working on a project? I would love to lay an hand on one of your
Yeah.
sketchbooks, of course, but if you can just describe those things.
Yeah, sure. I mean, should I go and get one? I've got one upstairs. Should I go and get? Do you want to pause the recording or no? My sketchbook from when I was in
Wonderful.
India. But yeah, I mean, with the Kadar, I mean, there's a lot of going through the process and sort of trying to pull out like kind of key story beats from things, and like just like even images that didn't sort of make it into the book. Like this is all just stuff
That's
that
fabulous.
trying to depict this way of life, and things like this. Just that I think this ended up in the book as well. But this is yeah, again, everything sort of being quite heavily researched. And also, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, sketchbook practice is it's very, very important to me. So yeah, this is
Yes.
something from the book
Yeah,
as well.
this printed as well.
But I think the sketchbook, it's basically where I explore ideas. So I will, for example, with these two books, I got sent the script, the text from Gita, and had a sort of brief conversation about like maybe I don't know, it was like a paragraph email. Like it's quite interesting. The commissioning process, like sort of talking to my students about it, where I think a lot of the time people think you're going to get this like really long, elaborate thing, and it's like no, maybe with a bigger publisher, but with a small independent who are very much invested in kind of collaborating with I don't know, Indian artists, like people who keeping like very, very traditional Indian forms of artwork alive, which is why I think they're so amazing. But also with me, like there was a degree of freedom that they gave me because they kind of trusted my approach as an artist, and it's very it's liberating in a way, kind of to not be treated as just like a technical skill, like your brain is involved as well. So going through the sketchbook process is kind of like mapping out like stuff within the text where I'm like, oh, that could make a nice image, this could lead on to this, what does this mean? Like what, because again, it's like my cultural background is totally different, so I'm like, oh, okay, so all of that and like questions, markups, then doing little thumbnail sketches of like how I think things should look, putting that together into a PDF, sending that off to publishers, whatever, being like, how does this look, getting the thumbs up or the thumbs down. And there's been some things I remember the first image that I drew for Walking is a Way of Knowing, I think was the Kadar elders at a bus stop, and I'd researched it, and I was looking at sort of references of the Kadar which had been sent through to me, drew this image, sent it off, and Gita emailed me back and was like, this is really great, but unfortunately women in the south of India wear their saris on the opposite shoulder, so things like that. When I was like, oh, which is, it's interesting, but it's this little semiotic message about like who is drawing this, like what is this, visually, like what does this mean, like these little kind of things which you are not aware of unless you do the research, unless you ask the questions, essentially. Yeah.